I'd like to get rid of that. Keep it out. On the wrong side. They going on? Good enough?
Yeah, you're live there.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start the meeting. Order. All right, has everybody had a chance to, I will do the quorum first. We have a quorum. There are people here. You ready to get here? Okay.
Yep.
All right, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes that Kent sent out? Any proposed changes of any sort? I have a motion to approve those minutes from the last meeting.
My motion.
All right.
I'll
Second, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Everybody votes since we barely have a quorum. I'm gonna go ahead and pass these around now because we forgot to sign the last meeting. I knew Colleen was gonna be on vacation, so I did bring a copy of the minutes from the prior meeting that we approved last meeting. So if you guys don't mind, we'll pass those around to sign because these are as changed after we've fixed typos and stuff.
As far as the minutes. I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Actually, Lynn, if you mind, starting kept on file with Colleen
They
there.
go back to Colin.
Yeah, since you'll be here tomorrow, I said, right? Right. So. Okay. All right, so hold tonight, work session so we can get some nitty gritty details, go through the, a solar ordinance rewrite. And so I had sent out really a copy of what they have over in Montgomery County, and it's a solar overlay district concept. And after looking at a couple different other counties and whatnot, I felt that this would be the most realistic that we could do pretty quickly and efficiently and provide perhaps not I mean, there's still a path for solar farms, but it would be a challenging path depending on who's in the county at the time. And I've got a list that Amy sent me. I told her this is going to be the only time we do this. I got some notes from talking to the zoning administrator over in Montgomery County of things that he liked and not liked after having dealt with this for a little while now. So I wanted to share those. One thing I wanted to explain on this before we get going. I think we're just gonna go around the table. I'm gonna take a lot of notes like we did on the advisory or on the comprehensive plan. Then I'm gonna go back, rewrite this, send it out, have another round, and then hopefully we get something close that people will have to vote on, okay? Basically, this will, so right now, except for the moratorium, solar is a permitted use in the ag district, which means anyone in the ag district with certain limitations, not much, solar farms can be done. This will remove that permitted use completely, and it effectively means that solar will not be a set permitted use anywhere in the county. The pathway, so the overlay goes over the ag district, and I think it's this one. Well, we're gonna write whatever we want. The way this one's set up, it goes over the ag district and I think industrial, and in the Fountain County, we basically have no industrial. It was that a little bit by Petersburg. If somebody wants to put in a solar farm, the process is fundamentally a complete rezone of wherever they want to put it into the, I'll call it the solar overlay district. And so there's no place right now where it can be. They have to come in, go through this process for 100%, complete rezone. This body would say ultimately yay or nay, and then it gets kicked up to the commissioners, just like all the other zoning ordinances that we do and everything else. And then the commissioners will get to vote on it. And then that's when it would become an ordinance and yes or no. All right. So there's two layers of, I'll say, checks there that would have to go through. And then the third layer is we have some, basically also at the same time, we put in this, the requirements and the hoops that they will have to jump through in order to even apply for the rezone before they can ever get a permit or anything like that. So in the future, we have one that comes in, they want to do it, rezone here, approval or denial at the commissioner level. Okay, it gets approved, then they still have all the different things that they have to do. Some of, I think a lot of which perhaps are not in the current. So that's the general concept. The reason I had come up with this, Roger threw out a couple other ideas too when I talked to him a few times. I thought this was a good starting point because I think we can get it done relatively quickly. Our moratorium time is ticking, and I know the county is anxious to just put this to bed. So, but it does not require us at this point to ever say we're going to allow solar or not allow it to be specific areas in the county, because that will just, then there's going to be a fight over every single boundary line. At this point, it's going to be nowhere, or it could be anywhere, depending on that process. Does that make sense to everybody? The logic that I was presenting. So, why don't we just start around the room? You guys make comments, I'm gonna make notes, and then I'd like to share over the list I've got. We've got some other stuff, I'll make some further notes. We'll kind of get into a double round. Is that okay? Yep. So Aaron, do you want to start? Sure. Mark, do you want to start? I don't care. Let's just start on him.
Go ahead, Aaron. No, if you're on, you're sitting good.
You're page 78. The setbacks, I don't think those are anywhere near far enough. And what you said, I think, would be a good start. I do have a problem with them. They, like I said, they measure those off so if we're using that 200 feet, it starts at the side of the house. I'm trying to remember where I read that.
Yeah, I think it's 500 feet. The 500-foot requirement is on the berm they would have to build.
Yeah, but they measure that from the actual
exterior wall.
Exterior wall.
Yeah.
So I would like to change that to be property. And property line, not exterior wall. It's in here somewhere.
It's on the last page, near the last. I saw it too. Maybe I'm wrong. Give me a second.
The landscape berm on the very last 83.
Yes, property.
Yeah, that's last.
Yeah. I would like that, the the setback to start from the property line, not the exterior wall of residence. Supposed to be only 200 feet from it, that wall's pretty close out to the street. So that's one concern.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention, just because I'm awful at distances, so I spent quite a bit of time playing with the GIS. When I talked to Roger this morning, he made it very helpful for me of thinking of football fields, how many football fields out it is, so. If you're like me struggling with how much that actually is. Go ahead. Aaron.
Waiver, I think is a great idea. I think if you're,
Can you
if you want to.
Point me out where you're at.
So it's right underneath setbacks under the 13.04, the adjacent landowner is talking about whatever. I think if your neighbor wants to waive that setback, then, what your neighbor wants to do, I don't think that's a problem. I think there should be wording though that protects down the line if they sell said property, that agreement.
It will not, realistically, no. If somebody, just the way real estate will play out, once it's waived, that's permanent, and
So
so.
that's okay, but it is perfect, that's going to carry on even if I sell the ground. Because of
Yes, the next owner will take it to, subject to the waiver you did, because, yeah, that's the way that plays.
Perfect, okay. That's the first one, permitting all that stuff, that's a lot longer conversation.
Well, give ideas if you would, because my goal on this, I said, there's no chance we're getting this nailed down in final form. I want to get an idea of what you're talking about, make a list, kind of compare it, compile it. There's gonna be a lot of overlap.
Montgomery County fees, $500, I think that's a little.
Where you short?
Rob was charging us $200 an hour. I'm pretty sure he's gonna spend more than 2.5, whatever, 2 hours looking at whatever this stuff is. I would like that to be up, and where that amount is, I don't have a number. But it needs to be more than 500 for sure. These additional fees. I'm not a big fan of additional fees. I think if we make that permit fee large enough where it should be, that should cover it, and you guys could argue me different, that's fine.
Where are you at on
On page 80. So they do additional fees on size.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, sorry. I see what you mean. Okay, sorry. So I'm trying to take notes here, so that.
Yeah, you're fine.
Direct me to where you're at, so I can.
That fee is more than the additional fee, I'm not, I think the permit fee alone should cover. I guess I'm not up for penalizing this, because you want to put, what if this thing breaks it down to from 100 acres to 1,000 acres? Like I said, you could sway my opinion, but I think the permit fee alone should cover that, an additional.
Right, then it's all of the factory.
Could. I would like to make that original permit big enough that that's not a problem down the road. And like I said, I don't think that number is, but they, a lot more than $500. The roads, all that, I mean, that, it talks about a bond, you go to the next page, A1. Talk about them holding, I believe, like a holding bond if ever they were, so if anything happens, I would like for them to also have to issue a bond for decommissioning and then cleanup in case of a hailstorm or a tornado or anything. I think we're all very well aware that if a tornado comes through and rips that up, who's going to pay for that cleanup? Because it's going to be very expensive. And I'm telling you, it's my position, the county's not, just so you know, that's my vote, we're not going to help clean up that. But I think it should be covered to make sure that doesn't happen. So we can require some type of bond, hazardous materials handling. As far as that, that's the only notes I've made so far.
I'll go, just,
Hold on, I wrote down Jake's name. I wrote down your name.
you can.
All right, Mark.
just as a point of clarification, the Montgomery County language covers both residential and commercial, so.
Yeah, Jamie mentioned that to me too, so what I want to say, because.
Yeah, I just wanted, because, and then I feel like it kind of goes on to speak about them collectively, and I think we need to discern between the two. I'll kind of skip up to kind of, to stay in keeping with what we were just talking about. Like the permit fees, for
Well, I
example.
want to hear everything you've got, because like I said, I'm trying to make one big
All right,
list, so
yep.
don't limit it just to what.
Oh, I won't, but I was just,
Yeah, because
All
my
right.
goal is you're gonna bring up, everybody's gonna bring up slightly different stuff. I mean, the permit fees are gonna come up, I mean, that's gonna be something and setbacks and that sort of stuff, but I'm wanting to get kind of the whole pile of ideas. A lot of them are gonna overlap, and there's gonna be some interesting ones that maybe somebody has thought about. So I'm trying to get all that out on the table, and then we can.
Good.
So keep, just go
Yep.
through it.
Yep, good. So agree with the setbacks. I think we need to extend those certainly. I like the idea of doing, the idea of having that 500-foot setback be from the property line and not the external wall of the house. I do like that idea. I think additional setback is needed. I think right now it's 200 feet for us. So that's one on my list. One of them was, page 79, 13.07, the development plan review. It says at the time of submission of the request for a development plan review. One of the things we talked about in an earlier meeting, when there was public comment, was about transparency. And if we wanted to potentially, when there is a submission of a request for a development plan review, if that's an appropriate time, that the public be made aware of it. And I think that that's supposed to be publicly available already when either a permit request comes in, and maybe that's the appropriate time to do it. I just wanted to, not that we made any promises to anything, but being more transparent about when either permits get applied for, or maybe it's at the time of this submission of a plan review, that there is something that is easily found or people are made aware of it. It was one of the things that I think we were somewhat agreeable to a few months back. The permit fees, and again, I was a little bit confused. I'm on page 80 now again with the permit fees. One of the things that I was a little confused about was, are these permit fees applicable to both residential and commercial? I think if somebody wants to put panels on the roof of his pole barn, I mean, I don't mind charging him a fee, but are they gonna have to put up a bond? Are they, for potential road repairs and things? I'm not entirely sure that that's appropriate for a residential setup for solar. So I think we need to kind of think about that. I think, again, I can't imagine somebody putting in a residential solar farm just for their own house and facility, right? For 500 acres.
You guys are all correct on that, and just so you know where I'm coming from, I'm really focused on the commercial ones.
Yeah.
The personal ones, to me, just need to be pulled out.
Yeah.
I mean, unless somebody starts feeling strong, but I mean, we've got Aaron, Mark, Jamie, me already, who I know feel that way, so I'll hear what you guys have to say too, but I'm in my mind, I'm really thinking of these big ones. So,
Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
but I'll keep making the notes, of course, so.
Yeah, agreed. So I think relative to the commercial solar farm, I think using this as a guide, maybe, I think these fees are obviously way too low. I put maybe 10x or 20x, if not more, for commercial on the permit fees for that. And we can nail that number down at a later date, but I think the numbers we see here, I know this is just an example that you pulled, but I think these numbers can kind of go out the window as far as commercial fees are considered. Yeah, again, my note about, a county bond, a letter of credit, another surety, that was
Where you at?
Sorry, I'm on page 81, just kind of reiterating, damage to roads. Just the requirements there in 13.14. Just, financial responsibility and all the county bond, letter of credit, another surety in and amount determined by the engineer. To not apply to any sort of residential solar. And then I think. That was all I have.
Where do you wanna go next?
I was just wondering if somebody could explain to me what this heat island effect study is all about.
Yeah, the concept, and I don't know anything about it, exactly, but the concept is if you have a certain number of acres with, black panels sitting on it, does that actually create basically a little heat dome like what you get in cities? I don't know whether it does or not, but that is what that is referring to, yeah. So,
I had no idea what that was referring to.
now I would. People and I would refer to other explanation or something, but that's the general concept.
And is there a greater fire danger like with these electric vehicle batteries?
I don't know, but I will tell you that every single solar ordinance that I've looked at has a fire plan. I mean, basically, if you consider this, and I'm just talking here, but I mean, this is a certain type of, I'll say industrial facility. I mean, I don't know if that's fair to say, but every county out there that I've seen have fire plans just because electricity is stuff. So now whether they actually ever go to burn, I don't know. That's I said fairly standard.
But the solar company, they wouldn't be putting in fire trucks and that out there.
Well, I would think so. Yeah.
County. That's about all I've got.
I think we all are looking at the fees and the setbacks, which is very important, and the damage to the roads. And just want to make sure that, during construction also, which they should be taking care of the roads, not after. And I think it's a little nitpicky on the fencing.
I have that too, but
That's a good point. I didn't bring that up either. I thought that was, a little pedantic to talk about. Colors and materials and all of that.
Yeah.
what you got?
I think it pretty much covers. The other thing was the lighting, to make sure it's not trespassing over shining into somebody's house or.
Yeah, I agree. Sure. That's
I think so at this time, yeah.
Jake.
I was on the same boat as questioning residential versus commercial. My question whether on 1312, whether 75 feet big enough. You want a legal dish had to be put in.
Which section is it again?
Page 8, 1312.
Yeah.
And we had a situation like years ago on the Tuttle stuff right there, South Attica, it was going to be county drained or whatever. I don't think you'd had enough room at 75 feet to do that. The permitting fees, I'm on the same boat as everybody else. And then something to do with insurance or a bond for natural disaster, wind, tornadoes. Bouncing and trying to read it on my phone.
Fair enough. Okay. I'm just gonna go through some notes, and I'm afraid that I have Jamie, the whole person, bring her email. Then see about it. But that's when we're gonna make final decisions here. So, yeah. This is stuff, from, when I talked to the zoning administrator in Crawfordsville. And the first one is a big one, so I have, just so you guys know, I don't know how many actually drove down and visited and walked around and stuff. I've gone to 4 major ones now. See what it felt like, listen to it and all that. I will say, from what I saw, if the inverters are closer to the outside, you can hear. I mean, they are loud. They are really, really buzzy. And so one of the, and as I was, like I said, walking along the fence line, kind of looking at this stuff, I was thinking, well, how would I feel if this was sitting next to me? And I will tell you that if one of these goes in and you're sitting out on your back porch and you hear this incessant buzzing, it's going to drive you mad. And so that, to me, this decibel level requirement, I think, is a really, really good one. That 32, just look it up. Apparently, it's the sound of a basically a boom whisper.
Yeah.
And so, where are you at? This is page 80. No, sorry, I actually wrote one more. This is page 82, section 1318.
Yeah, to contextualize that a little bit, Campbell, if it helps. Yeah, those inverters usually run at about 45 decibels. Human conversation it's about 60.
Okay, so it's kind of, we'll call it a lot of that.
And they said should be at 45 decibels, it should be inaudible at 150 feet.
Okay, well, and I do know that these, whether you can hear it at your place is gonna be directly tied to setbacks.
Agreed.
But, to me, that is a really, really big one. So that's on my list. Guy in Crawford, I'm sorry, just can't remember. His list was stormwater issues, flooding, which will be covered in the plans that's there. Road requirements, he said, is a big one. He said one that has, this one surprised me. He says that the one that came up, that had come up over there that nobody thought about was wild animal byways for deer, apparently. And he says apparently that's an issue that nobody, when they're doing the ordinance, thought about. So I wanted to throw that out there. And then the other thing he said, I didn't fully understand this, but basically over there, he says, so the solar farms can put in like a little test thing, that's, like on a little chain link fence or something. The test thing is, just to see, what it gathers and all that. And he says he wishes that they had a permit to put in one of those. And I didn't, and I think it was maybe more for his convenience, because he said what happens is people drive by, they see one and they start flooding his office. I don't know what a permit would do, but anyway, that was his final comment. But anyway, that's that was that. Okay, so on my general comments, honestly, I didn't make as many, because I wanted to see what you guys think. Again, the personal use versus the commercial, I'm going to focus on commercial. What I will say, Roger's stuff basically covered all of these. He's gonna have, I think, some details that he wants to put into like the road plan, the fire, the drainage, that sort of stuff. Setbacks, of course. The height limitations, this is 20 feet, and I think we need to figure out what it really is. 20 feet strikes me as really high, and the ones I've been to don't strike me as anywhere near that high. And I know some of the others I've looked at are quite a bit lower. And so that's one of the things that I think that we need to understand more.
You know, I pulled some average numbers on that. I think, 12 to 14 feet was more average. Yeah, for commercial solar from the better research that I did.
Okay. Um. Yeah, I had the same stuff you guys did on the development plan. Um. So on the fees. My idea on this is the fee for making it the application is one thing. Whatever we set that out, okay, fine. The concept of covering the county's expense is a completely different concept to me. I don't think the county can really protect itself from, figuring out, okay, what fee are we gonna charge and that's gonna cover our costs. I mean, there are gonna be significant costs for the county to fully evaluate this. And I think that that can be handled through some way of basically covering those costs. And basically what gave me the idea is I know one sort of, whatever one, when they come up the ERAs, they agreed to cover the county's costs on those things to some extent. So I think that we ought to consider that idea as opposed to just trying to come up with something as a fee that will cover everything in the future.
So you're thinking about actually just writing in language that essentially puts responsibility on the developer to say we're gonna essentially bill you in arrears for our cost.
Well, it would give the opportunity, one way that I look at this guys, is there has to be enough, as something goes through the zoning process and you go through permitting and you do all that, there is some back and forth. And what we do needs to then give the county an opportunity to have a negotiating position that it can then make demands. If it's gonna happen, okay, we need to have, it's just not, well, we gotta do this to protect the roads, it's a little bit more than that. So yeah, I would put in something, and I'm gonna have to defer to Kent. I mean, I've been studying statutes, which is very exciting, I promise you. Statutes don't cover that level of detail, so I don't wanna put in stuff, try to put in anything that endangers the ordinance, where it can create challenges and whatnot. But I think that we can just do something that is, if the county's gonna incur $200,000 to do this, we've gotta be able to recoup that somehow. Now, whether that's through taxes, I don't know, whether it's just a payment or something, I have no idea. But a mechanism that we can put in there so it's on the table. The drains, I'm with Jake on that. One thing I want to cover specifically, and this was in a public comment months and months ago. I would like to do something to specifically cover significant farm tiling. The grid tiling that somebody's put in their farm, if the solar panels go on that and just destroy that to now, they know because that was their choice to make. Fine, that's theirs. But Fountain County has a pretty informal system that has worked for a long time on farmers, allowing drainage. Usually it works until somebody gets to be injured and it breaks down, but allowing it, and you could have, whatever tile that everybody feeds into potentially for miles, I don't know, maybe not miles, but pretty far. And given what we've seen on how the two farms have played out, it's patchwork. And so I don't want to have one neighbor then destroy that tiling. And the reason I'm being specific on that is I know just enough about public drain law that a tile, even though, it doesn't necessarily cause a public, it's not necessarily a public drain. And so this language, I don't think would be sufficient enough to cover that. So that's something I think we should consider as well. Now, maybe it's there under mutual drains, but I don't know, I just think. Forest decommissioning. Noise levels is a big one for me. landscape berms, people mentioned. The fencing, from the ones that I've visited, it's pretty uniform, pretty good chain link fences, the ones that I've seen. I don't know where this, why somebody would put in this a black fence or something like that would be, you know. The height, I don't know, but people are looking at that a little bit, so. That is that is the biggest stuff that I had. And we gave me a very good list that I forgot, so. Any comments off of what I've said?
I quickly on the fencing, I think we maybe have to kind of decide what's the purpose of the fencing, obviously. Controlled access is, of course, the main thing, but if the intent is also, which it sounds like maybe it is in Montgomery County, if the intent is to block it out, so you
Well,
can't see it.
The two that I use in Montgomery County are chain link fences, and so I don't know if that came in before this, do you know, your honor?
I mean, it might be, but honestly, my instinct is probably that's the case. It serves some sort of like aesthetic buffering. Makes sense, you know, and it just depends, you know, on what your guys' preferences are and if you think that that would make sense for you or not.
Right, were the ones you saw, were they adjacent to residential?
No, not in Montgomery County. Well, yeah, actually, there are some, I just didn't find that one. I stumbled across the others.
Yeah.
The fencing is definitely a security type fencing. Other stuff that wasn't, I mean, the exterior lighting, a lot of these things are covered. The exterior lighting, I think, is pretty critical. I mean, I think it would be maddening. I don't know whether I haven't been in one at night, so I don't know if they're, you know,
Yeah, I guess the question is kind of, I'm trying to think about it in the context of what, if I live next door to one, what would I prefer? Fencing wise, I feel like if you got the additional setback, you'd almost prefer the line of sight, right? But if you didn't, then maybe you didn't want to stare at it. I don't know.
well, if you want to yellow fence instead of black.
Now you're just being difficult.
Anybody got anything else? What I said?
On those inverters,
Yeah.
could they be placed any place?
My understanding, is, I also went over and met with the COO of Tecmont to learn about this stuff. Pretty fascinating, the electrical grid, how it plays out and how it works. He spent an hour with me right now. That goes into the design plan. And so I'm being simple here. Let's say you got a big square, whatever that is. You gotta have some place to plug in, which is how you get into the grid. And the concept would be that, yes, those sorts of things you would locate towards the interior to Denver. And what I found at Crawfordsville is the ones with the inverters by the road, like I said, I mean, you can slow down and hear it through your window. They really are loud. But that one was pretty close to the road. The other one that was set back to the road. So I walked up the fence and walked back to the road to see where I could stop hearing it. And the setback does fix that ultimately. Where that number is, I don't really know. But also I would say on that one that I couldn't hear, the inverters were not there at the fence either. They had to be either on the other side. I mean, it's just the location that I got access. I didn't think I'd get arrested or anything. You know, there were no inverters there, so I don't really know for sure. So yeah, I just have to emphasize, I was amazed at how that work. So
I wouldn't like that either.
So on the setback concept, I would ask everyone to play around a little bit at your places. I mean, I got on the GIS today, kind of seeing, okay, my house, my property line, I mean, various points I kind of intrinsically know. Get a feel for what you think would work. My gut reaction, I'm going to spit this out, but my gut reaction is the distance from the property line. And I know there's distance from the house property line, but I'm thinking more along the lines of it's like 500 feet. I mean, it's pretty far. And the reason I've come to that, I mean, 100 feet, that sounds like a lot. But the farms that I went to in White County. The. Some of them were really far back. I don't know what that meant. I mean, I don't know if I'm 500 feet, 1,000 feet, but definitely there was some sort of farmable field and then the solar farm way behind that. And when they are that far back, other than the fact maybe you just don't like the fact that they're solar farms and not crops. You almost probably don't even realize it's there. It's really when it is in your face. One of the ones they're building in White County, they have this industrial district kind of south of town in Monticello. And I want to say there's a hospital or a hotel, I can't remember. There's a hospital, like a hotel, and basically these panels come up to the parking lot of the hotel. And when they're that close to you, I would say the visual is a bit more jarring. And it just doesn't, it's like, wow, it's really there. And so when I'm thinking in terms of neighbors, people that live by them, those were kind of like the feelings that I was, kind of the thoughts I had run through my mind as I was walking around these things, so. And I will say, I looked up on the EPA website. The ginormous, huge power lines that run there, up by my house, not that y'all know where I live. EPA, it says something basically minimum 350 feet, you should live away from those just because the electricity coming out of them. I do know, I remember some of the public comments had concerns about that. And so, again, kind of going back to that range. I did talk to Roger, setbacks from the roads. I do know that, like I mentioned, is the Montgomery County said their setbacks, he said they could push back on that because the solar farm will put it right up next to the road. I think there needs to be at least some setback. The county right of way obviously goes beyond the road. When you have the ditches, it goes in, nobody ever knows exactly where it is. But at the same time, it's got to be far enough back to allow for wrecks, crashes, and road expansions, work, that sort of stuff. And so, my gut reaction is setbacks on the road should also be important to consider, even though most of the time you think, okay, it's just along the road, who cares? But I think for future county purposes that we need to not forget about. I think that's it. I'm sure I forgot stuff. That's my notes. So, anything off of that? You guys? All right, let me ask some questions. So I kind of have some marching orders. I'm gathering that the I'll call it consumer level, personal level, sort of stuff, we kind of want to pull out of this. It's not really what we're targeting. That general consensus?
Yeah. I believe so.
Okay. The one thing on that, just because I don't know them very well, I'm thinking of the name of the friend on their house, they have a rural house, but they are basically completely off the grid. And I want to say in a phone call, they told me that they have close to 20 kilowatts and not 10. And talking to Titmon, I know that this 10 has come into, I'm gonna ask you, Dan, because I know you guys.
I can help you with that. So it gets into the net metering laws and rules. Okay, so technically in Indiana right now, you can't net meter and send extra power over to Titmont and then get paid back later on. What Titmont did, we're off grid, but it's because you can still connect to Titmont so that your inverter then will flux from grid power back to your array or your battery. You can flip back and forth. The cutoff when they set it for the all-by-site corridor emission for this is 10 kilowatts. So you can't have an array. You can have 9,999 watts. Once you get to that 10 kilowatts, you can't connect to it anymore. So for us, we went off grid because you really can't function. 10 kilowatts just isn't enough to really meet your own personal needs.
So how big is yours?
Ours is 27 kilowatts, and I actually would invite all of you to come out. I didn't think my inverters were noisy until the other day, we're converting the whole farm instead of all the buildings, all the outbuildings, the barns, the house, all over to heat pumps because they're more efficient. And so it was a cool morning. I threw all the heat pumps on. I wanted to see if it could handle the load, which it did. It went up to 18 kilowatts. But when it did, my normally quiet inverters, I was out front of the barn and I just thought all hell was breaking loose back from my power bill. And I was going to see what was going on. And it was just the fact that it was now working that hot.
So what I was gonna say is I knew that the 10 kilowatts comes about from the rules for net metering and whatnot. I also know that it takes a bigger system than that. This other couple I was talking about, I know they have around 20 megawatts. I wanted to be. I'd like to do something on this, and maybe if it's just for personal use, we take it out. Maybe that's just the simplest instead of trying to dictate a size. I just know from the other people I talked to, 10 kilowatts comes from that net metering, has nothing to do whether it's commercial really or not. But I would hate for somebody who maybe wanting to go off grid to have to get it really complete.
Right.
Commercial, then honestly, it's never gonna happen. So anyway, I want to throw that out. I want to think about that. Way of doing that.
You have to do some digging too. There's like some places in Iowa where they're building these new hog barns. They're using that as the roof to power the hog barns for like the quads or whatever.
No,
But that I'm guessing that would probably not be enough 10 for a resident. I don't know how you get qualified that, whether it be actually ag because you're using it to power your barn, or would it?
state that question again, because that's an interesting question.
They're taking like their, whatever they are, I don't know, 100 by 500 hog barns, finishing barns. And then they're sheeting some of that with solar panels on the roof, which powers the barn to cut their cost. So will that go into back to ag because that's part of your barn build, or is that residential? Because it's.
No, that wouldn't be, no, that wouldn't, I don't. If that's in here, that would certainly.
I think maybe the language, don't mean to interject, but maybe the language might be more helpful to think about it as if you're selling that power back. I think that the linchpin is if you're selling the power versus utilizing it for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, the instant you get into selling the power, that goes into your net metering. I mean, and so at that point, you would pull in everybody. To answer your question, I mean, it would still be ag. I mean,
I'm just throwing an example out.
no, but I understand that. So this is stuff I want to think about so I can come up with something and then go back to you guys. Let's see. My gut reaction is pull that sort of stuff out because what we're really targeting to have the opportunity on is these multi-hundred, multi-thousand acre farms, solar farms, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. All right, so that gives me that idea. And yeah, actually, Jake, to your point here, just above the setbacks, this has an exemption if you're using the power yourself, so we can maybe consider that concept too. Um, Enough to, enough to, get started on something that could be good, strong starting point. And since we have so many people listening tonight, I want to make sure they've got a chance to look at it. So, if you have other thoughts, as I always do, because when I step out the door, just please email me them. And basically my thought is I can get documents together that we're gonna be 85% happy with everybody to give us the pretty good structure, and then we can just start narrowing down some of the details, and there it is, okay?
Good.
Does anybody have anything else on this?
Not on the solar, but I do have something I want to address, but.
All right, well, then we will stop our work session on solar. We'll move on to communication from members.
Our last meeting, I was asked a question and our wonderful social media, has it looking like I lied, and I don't want that. Amber, you asked me a question about, and I went back and looked at the, video. You asked me how many meetings? Okay, and I said 3. I stand corrected, there was only 2. The other question was, you want to know if I attended them all, right? Okay. On social media, it was said that you asked if everybody was at the meetings, because you said that Tina was not there. So I don't, yes, there was only 2, but I was at both of them. Yes,
Yeah, she said she's.
yes, yes. Okay. Okay, well, I just wanted to put that on the record that I did not. Not unless I misunderstood you. Okay.
Else have anything? And I have a motion to end the meeting.
Can you do public comment?
I wasn't going to because it's a work session, but if you wanna have a few
It won't
things.
take long. It's just about solar and stuff that you were talking about. I did attend the technical review with Dolphin. So there were some things that were brought up, that was good points that you guys may want to consider. The buffers, I know Dolphin tried to put in invasive tree species in the buffer. So if you could put some sort of language in there to prevent invasive species being added for the buffer, that'd be great. They discussed the depth of the wires and height of the wires, especially going over the roads. If the highway has to do work out there, they wanted to make sure that the wires were buried deep enough, they weren't getting into them. They wanted to make sure that the wires were high enough that they had to access that facility. They could get emergency trucks in there and not have a problem with wires. The fences, and this may be in the fire plan, I don't know what you guys have, but they also discussed bumper gates, so if there was something out there that they could access easily without having to wait for somebody to come in and let them in. Also height on the fences as far as whether it's touching the ground, leaving room for, I mean, it's not gonna help deer, but small mammals be able to move in and out of those fenced in areas. As far as fees, we were discussing permit fees. I know I found ordinances where they wrote in the company pays for the engineering and lawyer legal fees, for the solar permit. One thing I did not hear anything about, and it may be in that plan, is discussion about battery storage, language. I know battery storage on site is a whole lot different than the regular solar panels. And I know Ranger said that they don't have that, but the next company that comes in may, so you may wanna look at that. Water testing to create a baseline. I'm not saying maybe they don't have to test every year, but baseline, so when they go in, they know if 10 years down the road there's a problem with water, they've got a previous test, you know, that wasn't there before. And that would obviously help protect the residents. We talked about noise, that's great, we definitely need a noise study, an EMF study. I know Dolphin did do an EMF study, You talked about those, the radiation emitting off those lines. You're gonna want something like that. Also, I think it would be nice to see some kind of language to protect homes that are surrounded by 3 sites or more. I know the noise study and the EMF study will differ if it's a house that's got one side that borders it versus being surrounded by it. So if you could maybe look into some of that or come up with some language on that. That's all I have.
I have a motion to.
Can I, is the purpose of all this to keep the solar out? Or to, what is the purpose of the ordinance?
Self-explanatory, yes, the purpose is to create the zoning ordinance for
Is
solar.
to let it in or to keep it out? Because you said you want to keep it out, we want to make it as hard on them as we can, right?
Well, you said that,
Well,
that's what I believe. The point on this is this will make it significantly more restrictive than what our current ordinance is. This does not create an all-out permanent ban. There is a mechanism, multiple hoops, that in some circumstances, yes, a solar farm could still come in. Getting there, I think, would be quite difficult. But it's not absolutely impossible by any means, I don't think.
Then why not make it impossible?
So. Because why make it impossible? So. All right, can I have since we're not doing public comments this evening, since it's a work session, I have a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make a motion. I'll close.
Second. Shall we vote to close the meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Second. Yeah, absolutely. That, yep. That sounds interesting. Yeah.